Good morning, everyone. Today's date is May 14th, 2013. This is day 2 of the evidentiary hearings in the Songs Investigation 12-10-013. We are in Phase 1, in which we are examining 2012 expenses and the reasonableness of the actions behind the decisions to incur those expenses. We have a couple of housekeeping matters to take care of. First of all, Mr. Giesman, yesterday we marked exhibits from the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility 1 through 17. Did you wish to move those into the record at this time?
I would like to do so, Your Honor. I move that they be admitted.
All right. Is there any objection? Hearing none, they are admitted. Note for the record that Edison has provided SCE 15, 16, and 17 in response to some inquiries yesterday by Mr. Giesman for the Alliance. He will have an opportunity to come back and cross on those exhibits. This morning we will begin, however, by continuing with the cross-examination of Ms. Spenskas. You may proceed.
Mr. Perez, yesterday I asked you, in reference to SCE 4, page 24, line 17 and 18. And in that testimony,
Since we are webcasting, can I ask the both counsel and the witness to speak up very loudly? We'd like it to get across. Thank you.
Sure. Should I use the microphone? Or?
If there is, Mr. Giesman, do you mind giving her the microphone there?
I'm sorry, I thought you had it.
No, I didn't grab it. I'm sorry, I'm just getting to line 17. I realized I had a different one up. Okay. Okay, so can you look to line, 14 through 18, but specifically 17 through 18, I asked you, what do you mean by rescheduling some non-critical maintenance activities, i.e. non-safety related systems? So I wanted to know, what are the non-safety related systems that you're referring to here?
We did some homework last night on this item, as was discussed earlier, and we were not able to complete the thorough analysis that I'd like to be able to provide for the specific items that were rescheduled. We did take a look at the underrun of 20.7 million. The majority of that, about 15 million, was due to the reduction of the contractors that we indicate there that went from 200 to 65.
Okay, so you actually reduced the contractors in 2012?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and you'll provide a more detailed analysis? When?
I'll probably need about a week to go through and identify those specific activities.
So, Your Honor, is there an order that SC produce such an analysis in writing?
Let me be clear about what it is that you're offering to provide. Exactly?
It'd be a list of these items that were rescheduled for the non-critical maintenance activities.
And they're not included in the lists of rescheduled capital. These are O&M expenses.
That's correct. These are O&M.
Okay. And it's going to take how long to get that done? Can you get it by Friday?
I can target Friday, yes.
Let's target Friday. Okay. All right. And that'll come in the form of an exhibit. I think you're going to be sticking around here all week, Mr. Perez.
That's what I plan to.
All right. Okay, so we'll get an exhibit that identifies those under the maintenance category of the non-safety related or non-critical maintenance activities. Is that your understanding, Ms. Spenskas?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. All right, you may proceed.
Okay, I'm turning to SC4, page 77, lines 24 to 27. And if you could let me know when you're there, Mr. Perez, I'll ask you some questions about it.
That was page 77, lines 24 through 27?
Correct.
I'm there.
You're there.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to quote, so for the record, so everyone can hear it. In 2012, SC incurred approximately $130.1 million in incremental expenses to investigate causes of the TTW. What does that TTW refer to?
Tube-to-tube wear.
Okay, going on, develop a plan to safely return Unit 2 to service at 70% power and place Unit 3 in an extended shutdown condition. The activities associated with the incremental O&M costs are described in this chapter. My question to you, Mr. Perez, is how much of the $130.1 million was directly spent, quote, developing the Unit 2 return to service plan, unquote?
We didn't track costs to that specific level of activity.
Okay, but Mr. Perez, isn't it true that in your testimony, you do break out, at least by description, the plan to safely return Unit 2 to service at 70% power? That's one item. And then you additionally describe a second distinct item, place Unit 3 in an extended shutdown condition. So let me sort of break that down for a second. With respect to that second part of the sentence, place Unit 3 in an extended shutdown condition, are you referring develop a plan to place Unit 3 in extended shutdown condition?
I'm referring to the activities that we implemented to put the Unit 3 into a layup and plant preservation mode.
Okay, so it's more than just develop a plan, it's actually implementing the plan to shut down Unit 3, or put it in a, place it in an extended shutdown condition.
That's correct.
Okay, so if you were describing those two items, why did you not break out the expenditures as to each one of those items?
We tracked the cost by order, and that's the way we reported it in this testimony. We did not aggregate them to these two items.
Okay, so then is it your testimony that you don't know how much of the $130.1 million was spent, quote, placing Unit 3 in an extended shutdown condition?
I don't have that information available at this time.
Are you able to get it?
I'm not sure if we'd be able to break all of the orders down by that.
Well, Your Honor, I'm going to ask that SC be required to do that.
All right, I'll take that into submission.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now referring to SC 04, page 85. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. So lines 12 through 14, and then moving on to the next page, the first two lines.
Okay.
So my question is it true that $94.6 million was spent on outside consultants, experts, and contractors to assist SC in developing the plan to return Unit 2 to service at 70% power?
Can you repeat your question?
Okay, my question is on line 14 of page 85 of your testimony, you state the majority of these costs, looks like of the 110.9 million that was spent by the engineering functional group. 94.6 million was for outside consultants, experts, and contractors. You see that?
Yes?
Okay, so was that 94.6 million, all of that used for outside consultants, experts, and contractors for analysis, tube plugging, and eddy current testing in the 4 RSGs?
That's correct.
Okay. Was any of that 94.6 million for outside consultants, experts, and contractors attributed to developing the Unit 2 restart plan?
A portion of the costs that are identified here would be for the restart plan. Some of the cost would potentially also be in the base costs.
Okay, and do you have those, so let me understand your testimony, but are you stating then that you don't know how much of the 94.6 million here, identified here in this testimony, can be specifically attributed to the consultants, experts, and contractors used to develop, just to develop the restart plan?
If you're referring to the restart plan for Unit 2,
I am.
that is correct. I don't know, as I indicated earlier, we did not aggregate or separate the costs in that fashion.
Okay, so where would I find in Exhibit 10 the itemization, to the extent that it is itemized, this 94.6 million for contractors, experts, and consultants? And if it's in various locations, that's fine. I just need to know where it is, please.
Well, in Exhibit 10, it would be the section that talks about question 3. All of our steam generator inspection and repair activities are identified there by each of the order numbers, and then a cash flow is provided January through December with a total.
What page is that?
That is page 13.
Okay, so so this represents the entire million under what, engineering? Support group? Or is there other are there other expenses here that are mixed in with this 94.6 million figure?
I think that's a slight mischaracterization of the testimony, because it says there's 110.9 million total for engineering, of which a subset of 94.6 was for this group of activities.
Okay. So can you, I mean, if what you did was total up the 110 million, where is that here? Is that the engineering total?
So the total of 110 million that you're referring to from table Roman 16-2, if you flip to page 14 of SCE 10, towards the top there's an engineering total of 67,651,000. That's the amount spent for Unit 2 engineering. The Unit 3 similar total would be on page 16, 43,232,000. The total's towards the bottom of that page.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Perez. And on Unit 3, you said it was 16, page 16?
Unit 3 total for engineering is on page 16.
I see that, thank you. Okay, so if you could turn to answer to question 4. page 64. And I'd like you to walk me through the timeline, but specifically with respect to, one, the root cause analysis. I'd like to know the timing of how that root cause analysis came about. And then I would also like you...
Can we take it one at a time?
Sure. Let's go with root cause analysis.
Well, on the timeline, we have the root cause analysis for Unit 2 identified at April 23rd, and the root cause analysis for Unit 3 is identified at May the 7th, and that's on page 64 of the exhibit.
Okay, so what I see here on 423, U2 first to where root cause analysis issued by SCE. What do you mean by issued by SCE? Issued, the word issued.
It was made available, Edison was completed with the revision 0 of that document.
When did the root cause analysis commence?
Can we identify which root cause analysis we're referring to?
Okay, so the one on April 23rd was the one for Unit 2 prepared by Edison.
Do you need a moment?
Yes.
Off the record.
I don't have the full document with me as to when the root cause evaluation began.
Do you have an estimate?
No, I don't.
Okay, did it begin after January 31st, 2012?
It would have occurred after that, yes.
Would it have occurred prior to March 16th, 2012, when the U2 Unit 2 equipment hatch closed?
I'm not sure at what point it started, so I can't respond to your question.
Who would know?
Whoever has a copy of the root cause evaluation.
Is there any expert that SC is offering up here that would know the answer to that question?
I can take a look at that report at the break and respond later.
Okay. That'd be great. So, with respect to the root cause analysis issued by SCE, were there other parties involved, such as MHI, in preparing the root cause analysis?
There were other parties involved in preparing that document. I'm not certain whether Mitsubishi was involved in that as well. I'm sure that some input was utilized in the development of the root cause analysis.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd like to ask further questions on this item, but I would need to do it after I have an estimated date of when the root cause analysis commenced.
Okay, so would you like to, at the moment, interrupt your cross until this afternoon when Mr. Perez will be able to tell us when this root cause analysis began or was initiated by Edison? Or would you like to go on to different topics and return to this?
Let me go on to a related topic, but not a directly related topic, and see if Mr. Perez can answer these questions, and if not, then maybe he can also take a look at the break for the answers to these questions.
Okay, give me a moment. So, Mr. Perez, you understand what we're asking you to do. It sounds like what you volunteered to do was at the break, either the short break or the long break this morning, you'll review the actual report to see if you can figure out or determine from other sources when Edison commenced the root cause analysis.
Yes.
This internal one that's being referred to here, and I want to be sure we know which one it is. I've seen analyses by MHI, by Arriva. I don't know if this is an internal or is reflecting one of those other analyses, so I want you to be able to clarify that when you come back.
Certainly.
And Ms. Vinskus will resume her cross-examination at that time on that point.
Okay.
All right, understood? Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. So let's turn to A4R's cross-examination Exhibit 6 again, if you will.
I did not bring any of yesterday's exhibits with me.
Okay, does anyone
Let's
have?
go off the record.
Your Honor, I can get...
Yes. So, Mr. Perez, could you turn to the second page of this document? It's titled Discussion Points.
Okay.
And my question to you is, with respect to the second bullet point, Unit 3 repair plans are in development. How long prior to October 25th, 2012, had the Unit 3 repair plans been in development?
We considered tube plugging a repair, and so any of the plugging that we had implemented or planned would have been a repair activity. And so those pluggings had been done in the early parts of the year, in the February and March timeframe.
February to March timeframe. Okay. So as of October 25th, 2012, we'll strike that. Let me go back. So I understand your testimony to be that tube plugging is considered a repair. You said that, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you actually started plugging the tubes in February to March 2003?
Tubes were plugged in February, March on Unit 3, yes.
Okay. What more in terms of a repair plan was being developed at the time of October 25th, 2012?
I think there were broader plannings as to long-term repair options.
Okay, and has SCE finalized, or let me ask, finished the plan as to long-term, did you say restart?
Objections,
of
Your
Unit
Honor.
3? I'm sorry if
Sustained.
I understood the answer wrong. So you said that at the
The
time.
objection has been sustained. That's outside scope. It's into 2013.
Well, I don't know
You're
that.
asking about the status of the restart now.
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm asking what, well,
Let's
let me
rephrase
ask
the
it
question
this
then,
way.
because we both heard it.
Okay, so at the time of October 25th, 2012, I understand, based on this document, that Unit 3 repair plans are in development.
Correct.
Okay. As of December 31st, 2012, were the repair plans still in development?
My understanding was, as I indicated on page 3 of 3 or 66 of Exhibit 10, that we'd received some information from Mitsubishi about those long-term repair plans.
So when you say received information, what does that mean?
As indicated here on page 3 of 3, page 66 of the exhibit, there was a letter on December 14th, and then we had also been provided by Mitsubishi some long-term repair options. I believe those are the exhibits that we mentioned earlier.
Okay, so is it fair to say just to clarify, is it fair to say as of December 31st, 2012, that SCE does not have a plan to repair Unit 3?
That plan was underway, being developed.
So So it wasn't, so SCE has not decided on a plan to repair Unit 3. I'm trying to get a direct answer to my question.
As of December 31st, there was no finalized plan for that unit's restart.
Super, thank you. Are all costs associated with developing a repair plan for Unit 3 in 2012 identified in SCE 10?
That would have been one of the costs associated with the Edison staff and some of the consultants that we had, and that would have been included in the section of inspection and repair, O&M costs. O&M.
Can you please speak up, Mr. Perez?
Okay.
I know you're soft-spoken, but boom, if you can.
I will try to.
Thank you.
Do you know with certainty whether Unit 2 will ever be returned to service?
Objection scope, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Well, I guess you're probably going to object to this next question, but let's
Perhaps
see.
you can phrase the question to be within this 2012 scope.
Do you want to ask a question?
I have plenty when you're done.
I'll let you craft that question. I think you'll be more successful than I will. Did the NRC make some kind of ruling yesterday relative to the timing of the consideration of your Unit 2 restart plan that was developed in 2012?
Objection scope, Your Honor.
Sustained.
All right, I'll wait for the rest of my questions after I get that information from Mr. Perez. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to allow Mr. Giesman to return to the exhibits that were marked this morning from Edison. Could you have Mr. Perez introduce those exhibits, please?
Yes, may I describe them for the record?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Exhibit SCE 15 for identification is a December 2012 letter from Mitsubishi to Edison. I would note that this letter had some attachments to it, which we have not included in the exhibit marked for identification, pending further evaluation of whether and to what extent they may contain proprietary information.
Okay.
Exhibit for identification SCE 16 is a December 14, 2012 letter from Mitsubishi to Edison. This letter has attachments which have been redacted by Mitsubishi to remove information that it considers to be proprietary. And exhibit for identification SCE 17 is another December 14 letter from Mitsubishi to a different person at Edison, and this letter did not have any attachments to it and has not been redacted in any way.
All right. So exhibits 15, 16, and 17, SCE 15, 16, and 17 have been marked for identification. Mr. Perez, you have them?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Giesman, you have them?
I do, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, let me start with confessing some considerable frustration. On March 18th, 2013, I engaged in a meet and confer process with Southern California Edison Company, and that process was reduced to writing. The resolution of that process was reduced to writing. An email sent to me that same day by Mr. Walker Matthews from the Edison Company. The question at issue here is question number 12 from the A4NR data requests. In Mr. Matthews' words, A4NR clarified that it is seeking documents identifying the status of repair replacement options considered for Unit 3. SCE agreed that it will conduct a reasonable search to identify responsive documents, if any, within 10 business days. The confidentiality issues discussed above pertain to SCE's response to this request. The reference to confidentiality is the immediate preceding paragraph in that email, in which it says, in Mr. Matthews' words, SCE again advised A4NR that responsive materials may be subject to confidentiality obligations. A4NR repeated its request that to the extent SCE asserts confidentiality on any question as the basis for not producing documents, SCE provide a rationale for confidentiality under the Public Records Act. A4NR also indicated that SCE could redact confidential portions subject to A4NR not waiving its rights to seek production of those redacted portions. Later that evening, I sent Mr. Matthews an email saying, Al, I agree that you have accurately summarized our discussion, and thank you for doing so. Initials JG.
What was the date of this?
March 18th, 2013.
All right.
Based on the exhibit that I introduced yesterday containing SCE's response to A4NR 12, I had proceeded on the presumption that no such documents existed until I saw SCE 10, in which Mr. Perez had two entries on his time frame that fairly clearly referenced documents. And that's how we got to where we are this morning. I've had an opportunity to very quickly peruse SCE 17 and SCE 15. I have to acknowledge I have not had the opportunity to go through SCE 16 because it is so voluminous. I'll confess, I eat the smallest portions on my plate first. But SCE 15 and SCE 17 both refer to other documents, in this instance, correspondence from Southern California Edison to Mitsubishi, directly covered by my question number 12. I don't know how I can conduct an intelligent cross-examination on this question without having had access to all of the documents and a reasonable time to prepare my questions. I also don't have any idea how this could have happened.
All right.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Weissman.
Thank you. Subsequent to the, first of all, this does not say we will produce. It says we will search. Subsequent to this email exchange, as indicated in document that has been admitted as A4NR 16, which is the response to question 12, which is dated the 21st of March after this, Edison reiterated its objection to the production of the documents on the grounds it's overbroad, burdensome, of limited relevance, that it contains confidential and proprietary information, privileged information, and so on. We then provided a narrative response in lieu of producing the documents. And that narrative response explains what the options were that were in discussions. I think it's fairly apparent from the detailed nature of this response that there were documents associated with it. Mr. Giesman did not follow up with a further pursuit of the meet and confer on the subject. So, yes, it's true that we did not produce documents. We did not agree to produce documents. We did not represent that there were no documents.
Mr. Giesman, why did this, if there was, so your assumption, your argument, your position is that you interpreted from their response that there were no responsive documents.
I was entitled to redacted documents.
I'm just asking what you understood from their response.
My understanding from their response and the absence of any redacted documents was that there were no such documents.
Well, I would call this a failure to communicate. And Mr. Weissman, it seems to me pretty clear that to the extent Edison is getting information about repair options in 2012, which is influencing its decisions and its strategies about what O&M to perform, what capital to perform. That was relevant. So I'm not sure what you're asking, Mr. Giesman. I think that what we can do at this point is we can certainly postpone the cross-examination on these exhibits for a couple of days.
I'm prepared to go forward on 15 and 17 today, Your Honor. I recognize your desire to get this wrapped up in a timely way, and certainly my client has been emphatic that the over-collections have to stop as quickly as possible.
Well, and I would say that in terms of what we're looking at for repair options, they're admissible for the fact that this information was conveyed to Edison, not for the underlying truth of whether these are viable repair options that test out with all the kinds of factors the Commission would consider.
I understand that.
All right. So I'm not sure that we're going to need to get to redacted portions, for example. So given that we have some repair options which are identified and some other information, if you're prepared to go forward on 15 and 17 now, all right, and we will postpone the cross on 16 for a day.
That would be fine.
All right. Is that acceptable, Mr. Weissman?
Certainly, Your Honor.
And I remind the parties that if there are discovery disputes that are unresolved, you need to bring them to Judge Dudney and I before the hearing. Before the hearing is when we need to hear about it, because that gives everybody more notice for whatever is the resolution is. So if these documents would have been produced in March, that would have been better for everyone. So that being said, Mr. Friedman, you seem interested in making a comment.
I am, Your Honor. I may have questions on SCE 16 today, if it's acceptable to ask about this, unless you're proposing to defer all examination on that exhibit until later in the week.
I'm going to give Ms. Venskis, you and Mr. Shapson, who've already done your first round of cross, additional time to cross on these exhibits. You can tell me when that works for you, within whether it's today or tomorrow. Okay? So I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Giesman?
Good morning,
You may
Mr.
proceed.
Perez.
Good morning.
At the risk of indulging in a cliche, my focus on these two exhibits is to try to determine what did Edison know and when did it know it. And I'm not interested in the technical viability of any of the repair options. A lot more concerned about cost, timing, and Edison's opinion of each of the options. I want to start with SCE 17. Do you have that document in front of you?
Yes, I do.
The first line of that letter, it's a letter to Peter Dietrich from a gentleman named Kiyoshi Yamachi. First line of that exhibit says, "This letter is in response to your November 28, 2012 letter requesting a specific repair and or replacement plan and schedule for the songs Unit 2 and Unit 3 steam generators by December 28, 2012. Are you familiar with the content of this November 28th letter?
No, I am not.
The letter goes on to say, in your letter, Southern California Edison also expresses concern over the time that it is taking to develop a repair and or replacement option to address the tube wear in the songs Unit 2 and 3 steam generators. Did Edison have a concern about the time it was taking?"
Well, I haven't looked at the letter of November 28th, so I can't determine how we expressed or if we expressed a concern.
I'm asking you, based on your general knowledge, whether Edison had a concern with the time it was taking to develop a repair and or replacement option.
I have not been involved in the discussions about Mitsubishi taking, as you stated here some time to provide the answers.
Were you aware of any concern on Edison's part about the time it was taking?
There may have been concerns, and I'm just not up to speed on that.
Does that mean you were not aware?
I was unaware. There may have been concerns, there may not have been concerns. I don't know.
Would those concerns have been communicated in writing?
If there were or not, I don't know.
On page 2 of Exhibit SCE 17, the top paragraph of that letter on page 2, 4 lines down, it says Mitsubishi has also communicated with SCE concerning the range of permissible operating parameters for the song's units. Were any of these reduced to writing? Any of these communications from Mitsubishi?
I don't know.
The next paragraph on page 2, the second sentence, says Mitsubishi agrees with SCE that this repair and or replacement should resolve the conditions that caused the tube-to-tube contact and wear so as to allow all 4 steam generators to return to service. How had Edison communicated this to Mitsubishi?
I don't know.
Turn to Exhibit 15. This is a December 20th letter from a gentleman named Hitoshi Kaguchi to Mr. Edward Avella of the Edison Company. It starts with the line, for purposes of reference, on October 11th, 2012, Mr. Kawakami met with Mr. Dietrich and you in person and outlined Mitsubishi's proposed repair strategy. Was this meeting documented in writing?
I don't know.
Goes on in the third sentence of that first paragraph to say, on November 13th, 2012, Mitsubishi received SCE's formal written request to make a final proposal for a permanent repair by November 30, 2012. Are you familiar with this request?
No, I am not.
The last paragraph on that first page, it starts, we now acknowledge receipt of your subsequent letter dated December 19th, 2012, referenced above. Are you familiar with that letter?
No, I am not.
It says, further to your letter and our meeting on December 14th, 2012, we confirm our understanding. Did you participate in that meeting?
No, I did not.
Do you know if it was documented in writing in any way?
I don't know.
I go to the last page of Exhibit 15, and the third paragraph in that, on that third page, says Mitsubishi preliminarily estimates that the schedule for both of these options, i.e. the design, manufacture, and delivery of either replacement tube bundles or entire new replacement steam generators, would take 5.5 years for the first unit. When they say first unit, is that the first of 4 steam generators?
I'm not sure if it's a steam generator or the pair for a particular unit.
I go to the next paragraph that is under the heading Mitsubishi recommended course of action. The second sentence says, while both are technically viable, there are many other considerations, e.g. cost, schedule, licensing, plant license renewal, and SCE's various stakeholders' acceptance, among others, that affect the decision whether to implement the repair or the replacement of the entire tube-bundle entire steam generator. Are you familiar with those considerations as discussed by the Edison Company?
I wasn't in those discussions, so I cannot comment on what was talked about.
Your Honor, I would move that these documents, well, I guess they haven't been admitted to evidence, so a motion to strike would not be timely, but I'm not certain what we have gained from this witness this morning or what we have gained from the inadequate production of documents by the Edison Company.
Well, certainly Mr. Perez was not able to respond to much about these. So, Mr. Weissman, do you have another witness that is able to co-sponsor these or initially sponsor these exhibits that can answer questions?
I believe that Mr. Palmisano, who we've discussed as a possible witness, could sponsor these and answer questions about them.
Okay. You believe.
I spoke with Mr. Palmisano. He is generally familiar with these discussions. I didn't ask him the particular questions Mr. Giesman asked him, so that's why I'm hesitating to be definitive.
Right.
But I would expect he would be able to respond.
So I think, was he involved in any of the meetings that are referenced? Would he have read the letters that are referenced?
Because I didn't ask him those specific questions, I hesitate to make a representation, but my understanding is I'm not sure whether he was at the meetings, but I believe he was familiar with these events. I believe he reviewed this correspondence, but I'm not certain.
Okay.
But I believe he would be in a position to provide information on these subjects.
And what day can he be available?
We had discussed having him testify tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And I think there's at least one additional letter or two that needs to be included. For example, the August 28th. I'm not sure that they're going to be terribly helpful, but they are referenced. The November 28th letter that's referenced in SCE 17.
Yes.
Okay. And then on November 13th, Mitsubishi received Edison's letter for permanent repair. I'm not sure if that's the same or a different letter. I think it's a different letter.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, could you...
I'm sorry, in SCE 15, paragraph 1, second sentence, Mitsubishi refers to a formal written request to make a final proposal for permanent repair. You see that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so that one. And then there's a subsequent letter in the last paragraph, letter dated December 19th, requesting a single repair or replacement recommendation. Those three letters should be added. Please turn off all electronic devices that are going to make noise. So let's get those into another exhibit. Let's have Mr. Palmisano sponsor those exhibits and be ready to answer details about the interactions between Edison and Mitsubishi on exploring repair options.
Understood, Your Honor.
Mr. Friedman.
I have one further request, Your Honor, for when SCE 16 comes up for discussion.
Yes.
Having briefly reviewed it, I noticed that there are approximately 15 consecutive pages that have been fully redacted.
Right.
And those relate to plans for the implementation of a particular repair option. The redactions seem quite broad, and I'm wondering whether the redactions could be more narrow and tailored. It's hard to imagine that every single item on that list is confidential.
Well, I have two thoughts on that. One, I'll ask Edison to take a second look at that. But for the most part, this is coming in December of 2012, so the details of how those repair options might be implemented going forward are going to be more likely in 2013. That's what I look at when I see the redacted portions. Now, it may be that there are certain elements of it that might have informed a decision in the last 2 weeks of December.
Oh, I guess I'm interested in decisions that Edison might have made regarding which options to pursue and not to pursue at the time, and this information would be quite helpful in knowing.
Right, but this information arrives with Edison to Edison just the last 2 weeks of the year that's at issue here, and so how far forward can decisions have been drawn from the details that are on modeling and materials and system adjustments? I'm not sure that we get much for 2012.
Well, to the extent that these documents are useful at all,
they're certainly useful in Phase 3.
And to the extent that they're relevant in Phase 1, I feel like the confidentiality issue is somewhat distinct. To the extent that Edison wishes to redact certain elements, they should provide a more robust justification rather than simply blacking out entire pages. It seems like the Commission's practice generally is to require that redactions be more tailored and narrow.
All right, duly noted. Ms.
Can I just clarify one point, though? We didn't redact this. Mitsubishi did. I just want to clarify that point. And they regard what these pages that Mr. Friedman is referencing deal with specific physical steps that would be part of the process of implementing this proposed alternative.
And do any of those steps begin in December?
No. This was a conceptual proposal that was presented for consideration. Nothing actually was carried out. So I just wanted to clarify that this is, from Mitsubishi's perspective, they feel that the particular way that they would go about doing this is proprietary. That's the reason, my understanding is that's the reason they redacted these pages.
Well, I'm still inclined to think that's an argument for Phase 3. Ms. Sullivan?
I'd like to note that it seems to be established that Edison and Mitsubishi have worked together for several years, as a technical team to evaluate issues and problems and develop solutions. So I would posit that it's very likely that this letter actually represents work that was performed by such a team in 2012, and that the letter is just the result of that work. So unless Edison is able to say that they had nothing to do with any of the work developing these options, I think it's very relevant to what happened in 2012.
Ms. Deskis?
I just need a way to resolve this as if Your Honor reviewed the document in camera and decided for Your Honor self whether or not this could be relevant. Just an idea.
Well, certainly that would happen if there were a motion to put it under seal. I think we will take a break until 10 after 11. We're off the record.